Hi everyone, welcome. Back by popular demand, I'm giving you a quick little tour of my garden before we get to feeding my outdoor worm bag. I don't have a great number of things growing in my garden. Just a handful of stuff, not even that many. There's, I guess, up here in the very front is the cucumber vines. And I've assembled, as you can see, this trellis system for the plants to grow up onto. And I've even encouraged the cucumber plants to sort of keep going. I gave them a pretty good high trellis to climb up onto, but then I even went so far as to set up some additional material for them to keep climbing on overhead. And at this point, I'm just kind of curious to see how far it's going to lead. How far are they going to keep going? And then other things that are suspended off this are the tomatoes. Many of the tomatoes, as you can see, are already reaching the point where they've exceeded the height of the frame, or the whatever you want to call this thing. And I've got a variety of different tomatoes. Unfortunately, I've got one here that's not doing too good. It's already got ripe fruit on it, but the plant looks like it's on its last legs. There's perhaps 3 or 4 types of plants here. 3 of them were intentionally planted. I believe these are one of the ones that came from the store-bought seeds. And there's a number of them here. There's also some kind of dark colored cherry type tomatoes growing. Most of the ripe stuff has been removed over time, but there's some of it still here out on the plant. And a good number of the stuff growing here, I believe, is voluntary. Stuff that just sort of started popping out of the soil that I had planted my seeds in. And even though what I had intentionally planted didn't really grow, some other weird volunteer stuff just started popping out, stuff that I had no idea what it was. So I just let it go, and I figured, hey, if those are the strong plants, why not just go with it? And it'll be a potluck sort of a garden as far as tomatoes go. Peppers wise, we've got these, I don't know, Hungarian, they're called Alma paprika, or apple peppers. So they're not very large, but they're kind of shaped like an apple. They're just round and squat. And then I guess the main type of peppers that I'm growing here are these other types of Hungarian peppers. Really nice in size already on some of the plants. Definitely coming along good. But that basically makes up my little modest garden. Fun little pastime in the summer, but hey, we're out here to feed worms. So why don't we get over to the worm bag and get that started. Some of the stuff that I've got for them today is cucumber peels, and there's other things mixed in here too. There's some potato peel, even a little shot of vitamin C for them in the form of lemon peel, and a couple other things, but you kind of get the idea. And then, very similar to what we did last week, I went down to my wormery and I gathered up some of my prepared shredded bedding, but last time it was shredded paper bag that I bought for them, and this time I bought pretty much an equal amount of shredded cardboard. So my idea here was to continue to build out the environment for these little guys. As you can see, we've had a visitor here again, and I checked on this a couple days ago when I first noticed it. There was a whole lot more material tilled up by whatever it is that had tried to reach past the plywood cover and get its little grubby paws on something to nibble on. And I didn't really do anything other than take a peek, so you can already see some of the excavation caused by the little critter that was digging around in here. Here we can see the paper bag in which I bought down the shredded paper last time. It looks like it's getting nibbled away a little bit here and there. All this wear is the results of the past 10 days since we last checked in here. And then we've also got this other top covering fragment of what remains of a circular shaped piece of cardboard that had been fashioned to be top covering here. All these little roly-polies are running around trying to get out of the way. So I'm curious to see what's become of the shredded paper that we threw in here last time. It went in completely dry, and then we added a food which wouldn't bring with it a great deal of moisture. It was just a bunch of corn cob. And that's part of the reason I figured if we were to come back in here 10 days later, we're not going to see the worms mobbing around. I mean, we might see a little bit of a mob scene gathered around the corn cob, but wear and breakdown of the corn cob is probably going to be minimal, because that stuff takes quite some time to break down. And I guess the fact that corn cob was what they received last time was part of the reason I thought that coming back after only 10 days would be a good idea. Because even though they might have started checking it out and crawling on this stuff, they probably haven't made a great deal of progress. Corn cob is pretty tough, fibrous food that the worms definitely enjoy cruising around on and eating. In fact, I think one of the favorite things that they like is the soft core that they'll generally work out first because they're able to, and then they'll eventually do away with the whole thing, but they'll always go for what's soft and easy to eat first and work their way to the tougher things later. Here we've got a couple objects that have been floating around in this system for quite some time. It's a cut in half mango seed, and then all this stuff here, it already looks like we might be down in the shredded paper bag that I had placed in here as bedding, but it's not. This is I'm fairly certain that this would be potato peel. So I guess besides corn cob, we must have given them a little bit of potato peel, which they're getting a little bit more of today. Oh, now I think we're getting down to the shredded paper. You could definitely tell the shredded paper that comes out of my shredder because of the shape, the thin strips. These larger strips I presume are potato peel, just based on their size, I think. So let's excavate some of this shredded paper out of the hole. There's a good bit of it, because we need to make room for what's coming in fresh, which is a whole bunch of shredded cardboard. And I am starting to get this feeling like perhaps before we designate a spot here in the bin for the feeding, maybe it would make good sense to just stir all of this existing stuff in and then create a spot for the newly added stuff. So you know what, I'm gonna temporarily remove these older food items just so we can till in and combine all of this shredded paper with the rest of the contents of the system. As you can see, this system's got a good number of worms in it. In the previous check-ins, when the system was still much younger, we would always have a pretty tough time seeing the inhabitants of the system because they were living in stuff that looked like this, stuff that looks just like more worms. But as the contents of the system start to transform more into castings, the inhabitants of the system become more and more visible, and perhaps they're even expanding their numbers over time. We're now up to feeding number 15 in here on day 160 of the system being in service. So let's not forget, we want to blend in some of this stuff we excavated. So as I till up some of the stuff that's mainly castings only, I'm going to keep reaching for a handful of this shredded paper to keep blending it in. And I think that the worms are going to like having that stuff throughout their material. The material's got a really nice moisture content to it. I didn't know what to expect. turbocharged truck, diesel truck, driving down my street here. But yeah, I'm glad to report that the shredded paper that had gone in here all dry is nice and damp, and that's sort of to be expected. It's, you know, been placed right smack in the middle of the system, where it had the opportunity to absorb some of the moisture from the surrounding materials. And the last time we came in here, we had come in shortly after a couple days of pretty torrential rainfall, which had been soaking the system considerably. So I knew there was ample moisture content within the system to hydrate all that paper and then some. And it did seem like the worms were actually starting to move into the shredded paper a little bit as well. Good to see so many worms hanging out in here. And it's also nice to see how much space that this stuff actually occupies once you fluff it all up. When it's all compacted down tight in the bottom of the bag, it seems like we've got plenty of room to grow. But I don't often come in here and attempt to fluff up everything, although I think in most check-ins we pretty much do fluff up almost everything. We do have a tendency to do a quick lap around the whole system, usually mainly for the purposes of inspecting the material and checking out the worms, but this time we had a little bit more of deliberate intent here, which was to blend in all this paper throughout the system. I think we've done a good enough job of it now that we can proceed to giving them their portion for today. So let's excavate the center here. Then we can come in with our nice big generous bag of shredded cardboard this time. I believe it is a little bit more than we gave them last time because the bag is a somewhat larger bag than we used last time. So I want to make sure we've created a hole large enough to fit all of it, and also leave ourselves with a little bit of additional material with which we can cover up thoroughly at the end. All right, so here we go, coming in with a fairly generous quantity of cardboard, as you can see. My goodness. I don't know if it comes through on the microphone of the camera, but there's thunder. There's thunderclaps and there's sunshine. There's no sunshine here because I bought the bag over into the shade, so we don't have any sort of harsh lighting that's going to throw off the exposure of what we're trying to capture here today. But there is bright sunshine in my yard, and at the same time thunderclaps. So it's kind of an unusual summer day over here in lovely New Jersey. As you can see, this cucumber peel, once it gets placed into the freezer, starts to kick out a little bit of its moisture content, which subsequently frosts up. So this feeding does seem like it's bringing with it a fair bit of moisture too, which will probably be good for the dry cardboard that's right below it. And then all the surrounding material, which also has some nice moisture content to it, will also help with the dampening of all that dry cardboard. I mean, I even thought about bringing over my watering can and actually adding water to make sure that all that cardboard is nice and damp. But I figured I would first wait to see what the material in the bin in general looks like before we take that measure, and it didn't seem necessary, so I opted to go with the dry stuff. And you know, this paper bag I think is still in pretty good shape. I could probably just take it back downstairs and use it for some other purpose, because we've still got that top covering paper bag that we used last time to bring bedding down here. So I don't think we need to bring much more in. We'll just stick with what we've got here. Kind of cool how you could see like a whole little family of isopods hanging out here at various sizes, an adult one as well as a couple little babies hanging out in the cardboard. And I bet you if we were to like peel this stuff apart and look inside the cardboard, we'd find even more creatures hanging out. But I think that pretty much brings us to the end of this check-in. Let's bring back the nice ornate piece of plywood we used to cover up with. Luckily it is here and it prevents the majority of invader activity. Obviously they're able to reach in past some of the gaps and possibly grab a few handfuls of little wormies to snack on, but luckily they're not able to raid this thing and deplete it of its population, because as you can see, we've got a good number of worms living in here and they're doing a great job. So I've got a few things I've got to take care of getting cleaned up and put away, but I'm not going to waste your time with that. Before I go there really quick, let me just say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye now.